Chief Abube Odenigbo was not a man who simply vanished. In Owerri, his name opened doors, closed deals, and caused whispers in elevators. So when news spread that he had been kidnapped, the city trembled. But this was no ordinary disappearance. No broken glass, no ransom call, no struggle marks, just an empty mansion, a security system turned off, and a note on his pillow that read, "Sometimes you must lose yourself to find what truly matters." His three children, Obinna, Chibuso, and Adaora, gathered that morning in the family's marble-floored living room. None of them knew what to think. Obinna, the eldest, paced near the window, phone to his ear as he barked orders at the family lawyer. A political aspirant and businessman in Abuja, he wore anxiety like a tie, tightly wound and visibly uncomfortable. Chibuzo sat slouched on the couch, scrolling on his phone with a frown. A DJ-turned-music producer with flashy taste and a short temper, he looked annoyed more than worried. "This has to be one of Dad's games," he muttered. "He's probably hiding somewhere to test us. Again." Adora, the youngest, stood still, clutching the note she'd found. Her eyes darted between her brothers. She was the softest-spoken of the three, a schoolteacher who had chosen to stay in Owerri to care for their mother before her death. Her calm presence often made her seem invisible between her louder siblings. "There's no sign of forced entry," she said, voice low but steady. "He left this on purpose." "What are you saying?" Obinna turned, his voice sharp. "That Papa staged his own kidnap? Why would he do that?" Adora met his gaze. "Maybe to see what we do." A tense silence filled the room, broken only by the hum of the generator outside. It was true. Chief Eboob had always been unpredictable. A man of proverbs and puzzles, one who believed more in teaching lessons than handing out lectures. His mansion was full of paintings with hidden messages, books with margin notes, and safes within safes. This could very well be his final test. And so the days that followed would begin to reveal their true hearts, not just to their father, but to each other. While Obinna flew back to Abuja and Chibuzo retreated to Lagos, citing urgent matters to attend to, Adaora stayed. She cleaned their father's room, watered his orchids, and greeted the security guards with silent nods. Every day she sat in the garden he loved, by the bronze sculpture he had commissioned of his wife years ago. She didn't know where he was, but she hoped he would know where she stood. And somewhere, watching through a camera hidden in the oldest tree in the compound, Chief Eboob saw. He saw his daughter bringing food to the house staff. He saw her pay the electricity bill he had deliberately left unpaid. He watched as she stood up to an estate agent who came sniffing around the property, claiming someone wanted to buy the land. He smiled quietly in his hideout in a quiet village just outside Umuahia. She had passed the first test. And the others? They were just getting started. Back in Abuja, Obinna sat in his corner office, the city skyline gleaming behind him. His father's disappearance had shaken him, not with worry, but with urgency. He had always believed the family estate should eventually be split. Liquidate and modernize, he often said. The land alone was worth billions. Now, with the old man missing and the will yet unseen, Obinna smelled an opportunity. He called the family lawyer again. "Find out who holds the title deeds," he said. "If anything happens to him, we need to act fast." He didn't call Adaora. He didn't ask about the mansion. He never once visited Owerri after the day he left. His actions, too, were being watched. From a modest tablet screen, in a dim room with peeling paint, Chief Aboob sighed. "So much learning, so little wisdom," he murmured. In a high-rise apartment in Lekki Phase 1, Chibuzo sipped a glass of Hennessy and flicked through his phone. The social media buzz about his father's disappearance had given him a spike in followers. He posted a black-and-white photo of Chief Eboob with the caption, "Come home soon, Pops, we miss you." Comments and likes poured in, but behind the filters and hashtags, Chibuzo was restless. He called his manager. "Book me that Ghana gig next week. I need the distraction." He told himself he wasn't avoiding Owerri, but the truth was he couldn't handle the silence of that mansion. The echo of his father's disapproval still lived in the walls. On the 7th day of the disappearance, a brown envelope arrived at the mansion, addressed in his father's unmistakable script. Adaora opened it. Inside was a letter. "If you are reading this, I have not returned, and it means you are the only one who has remained. The estate will not be divided until each of you proves the meaning of legacy, not in word, but in action. There was also a key. It opened a small room on the second floor that had always been locked. Inside, journals, voice recordings, and documents that mapped out decades of Chief Aboob's life. His rise, his heartbreaks, his regrets. Adara sat for hours reading his words, tears quietly sliding down her face. She understood now. This was not just a test of loyalty. It was a blueprint for healing. Among the documents, Adora found a sealed envelope with a stamp from Enugu. The name read, Amadi Easy. She opened it with trembling hands. To the daughter of the lion, it began, if this letter has reached you, it means Aboob is still watching. He has spoken to me about this plan for years. I never thought he would go through with it. But here we are. He left something with me, an audio recording you must hear. Attached was a flash drive. Adora played it on her father's old laptop. His voice crackled through the speakers, deliberate and strong. My children have grown apart, not just from me, but from themselves. I fear they will not remember who they are unless they are shaken. I do this not to punish, but to awaken. If I am wrong, may they never forgive me. But if I am right, may they thank me when I am gone. Adora covered her mouth as the recording ended. She looked at the key again. What other rooms had her father locked? And what would she find next? 2 days after Adora discovered the flash drive, a knock echoed at the mansion's heavy wooden door. It was mid-morning, and the Harmattan haze had settled like a curtain over Oweri. She opened the door slowly. Standing there was Chibuso, sunglasses perched on his forehead, suitcase in one hand, a sheepish smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. Hey, he said, I needed to come home. Adora didn't speak immediately. She studied him. He looked tired, older somehow. Finally, she stepped aside. He walked into the house and paused, taking in the familiar scent of polish and hibiscus. I heard there's a key now, and journals, and tests. You came for the inheritance? She asked quietly. He looked at her, wounded. I came because I remembered how Mama used to sit in the garden every evening, and how Papa always said, a child who forgets where his story started has no idea where it should end. I came because I miss home. Adaora nodded slowly. Maybe this, too, was part of the test. Over the next few days, Chibuso helped clean the property. He fixed the water pump with Tunde the handyman, repainted part of the west wing, and even joined Adara in sorting through their father's recordings. They listened late into the night, piecing together the mind of a man who refused to be predictable. One entry stood out. Chibuzo was born during a thunderstorm. The moment I held him, I knew he would bring music wherever he went. But music without wisdom is just noise. I pray he finds his melody again. Chibuso sat in silence after hearing it. That night he took his keyboard to the garden and played. Not for social media, not for crowds, but for the wind and the soil and the memory of his mother. And from the hidden camera feed in Umuaya, Chief Iboob wiped a tear from his cheek. 2 had returned, 1 remained. Far away in Abuja, Obinna sat at a lunch table with his campaign manager. A senator had just offered his endorsement, on one condition. Sell your father's land, the entire estate. We'll build a convention center there. You'll get shares, and you'll get a win. Obinna hesitated. For the first time, something twisted in his gut. The estate wasn't just land. It was their childhood, their story. Later that night, he scrolled through his siblings' photos. He saw Adaora planting flowers near their mother's sculpture, Chibuso playing the piano in the garden. He paused. Then he booked a flight. The next day, he stood at the entrance of the mansion, briefcase in hand. Adora opened the door. "Third time's the charm," she said. Obinna didn't smile. "I came to talk, and to listen." And far away, Chief Ebube Odenigbo exhaled deeply. All 3 were home. The sun rose gently over Ikenegbu as the Odenigbo siblings stood side by side in the garden for the first time in years. Adaora laid fresh hibiscus on their mother's memorial stone. Chibuzo swept the walkway clean. Obinna adjusted a cracked flower pot, quietly noting how the silence no longer felt like a burden. Inside, the siblings sat around the table with the journals, recordings, and maps of the estate spread before them. What if we restored this place? Adara asked. Not just for us, but for the community, a library, a school, something that honors him and Mama. Obina didn't answer immediately. He ran his fingers over a faded photo of their father as a young man, smiling beside their mother. I think that's what he wanted all along, he said. It wasn't about property, it was about legacy. That evening, a press conference was held outside the gates of the Odenigbo estate. Obina stood at the podium, flanked by Adaora and Shibuzo. Microphones from national news outlets stretched forward. My siblings and I have decided to preserve our father's estate not for sale, but as a community space in his honor, he said. Our family name should be remembered for what we give back, not just what we build. The crowd erupted in applause. Chief Abub, watching through a live stream on his tablet in Umuahia, leaned back in his chair. They're ready, he whispered. 3 days later, a white Toyota sedan pulled up quietly in front of the Odenigbo estate. The driver stepped out and opened the back door. Chief Ibub Odenigbo emerged, dressed in a simple white kaftan, a carved walking stick in hand. His beard had grown fuller, his face more lined, but his eyes, those piercing eyes, were as alive as ever. He walked to the gate and knocked. It was Adora who answered. For a moment, she couldn't speak. Then she smiled. Welcome home, Papa. Behind her, Chibuzo and Obina rushed to the door, and for the first time in years, the Odenigbos embraced as a family. No inheritance, no expectations, just love and understanding. After the reunion, the mansion buzzed with quiet joy. Laughter drifted down the hallways again. Meals were shared without agenda. In the study, Chief Abub gathered his children. I never disappeared to punish you, he said, looking each of them in the eye. I disappeared to remind you of your roots, to force you to choose what kind of legacy you want to carry. He passed them each a sealed envelope. Inside were letters, not deeds or accounts, but personal notes written in his own hand. To Adara, you held the home when everyone else let go. Never let the world quiet your voice again. To Chibuzo, the music is not in the fame, but in the truth it tells. Don't ever forget why you started. To Obina, you were always a builder. Now build what lasts beyond your name. Each child held their letter in silence, a weight far greater than any property title. The estate began to change. The central courtyard was transformed into a community garden. An old storage room became a library. The front hall hosted seminars, free classes, and women's empowerment workshops. And Chief Abub, though still strong, relinquished leadership. He became a counselor, a griot, a mentor. One afternoon, a young boy from the community asked him, Are you the owner of this big house? Ibub smiled. No, my son. I'm just the one who made sure the right people came home to it. On the one-year anniversary of his return, the family hosted a public event on the grounds. Hundreds came, old colleagues, neighbors, and strangers whose lives had been quietly touched by the Odenigbos. As twilight set in, Adori walked to the front gate and placed a small plaque beside it. It read, In this house a father tested his children, not with wealth, but with wisdom, and in finding each other, they found themselves. Behind her, Obina greeted guests warmly. Chibuzo performed an original song titled Legacy. Chief Ebube sat in his favorite chair, watching. Tears shimmered in his eyes, but he did not let them fall. He had done what he came to do, and for once he had nothing left to prove.